All right, good evening, everybody. Flying cars, yeah, I can't wait for flying cars. And in fact, I've needed them for a very long time. Just a couple years after the movie came out, I was driving home one night in my hometown at the time of Winnipeg, Manitoba. It's the blue star on the top. It's about 4,000 miles from us today here in Phoenix. And just for your point of reference, tomorrow night, the low temperature in Winnipeg will be minus 24 degrees Fahrenheit. So, am I glad to be here? I think so. So let's go back to that night, a couple years after the film. I'm driving on a 2-lane rural road, and over the course of about 5 minutes, weather conditions changed from light snow to whiteout. It was so bad that I couldn't even see the front of my car. So I thought about pulling over to the side of the road, but again, it's kind of a rural road. There wasn't much of a shoulder, and I was afraid somebody might run into me from behind. So the only thing I could decide to do was just keep going. So I opened my driver's side door, minus 24 degrees out, and steer by trying to look at the little yellow dash line on the road. So it was one of the most terrifying drives of my life. But it set me on a quest to provide drivers with better weather information. For me, so I don't have to do that again, and for everybody else, so hopefully you don't have to do that. Now maybe you've had a similar experience, possibly not driving in snow or ice, unless you're not from around here, but maybe hydroplaning or floods. So these days I live in Boulder, Colorado, and had the great pleasure about a year and a half ago of experiencing what the National Weather Service called a biblical flood. Now in 2 days, we received more rainfall than we ever have in a given month in our entire historical record. The local creek, Boulder Creek, was flowing at 2.5 times its historical maximum. And roads all around the region, nearly impassable. So this is one of those days where weather conditions were changing so rapidly that if you're sitting at home and you're trying to follow things on the TV or on the internet, it was very difficult to know what was going on. And when you get out on the road, forget about it. And that's kind of a problem, because driving in bad weather is incredibly dangerous. What if I told you every 2 weeks a 737 crashed? Would you consider that a problem? Yes. That is the right answer. Would you be surprised to know that driving in bad weather is about the same? So here's an interesting graph. We hear a lot about tornadoes and hurricanes and heat waves, especially around here. When you add that all up, it's less than 10 times the fatalities we see every year on our nation's roads in bad weather. And overall, I don't think this is because people are bad drivers per se, but it's kind of like what happened to me so long ago. Before you know it, you stumble into bad weather conditions, and there's really nothing you can do except hope and pray, and maybe you'll get out okay. Now, again, we're in Phoenix here, and you might be thinking, well, it's probably an issue of snow or ice, and if you live in the Dakotas, this is certainly an issue, and probably Colorado as well, but probably not here, right? It turns out not to be the case. Over 3 in 4 of the fatalities that we have are actually associated with wet roads, more than snow, more than ice. So this is a national problem. But I'm actually not here to talk about doom and gloom anymore. I'm actually here to talk about solutions. So over the past 5 years, I've been leading a dedicated team of scientists and engineers at the National Center for Atmospheric Research. In collaboration with state DOTs and funding from the U.S. Department of Transportation, we developed the Pikeload system. Now, if you know what a pike is, it's a small furry mammal. It's native to North America here. It's very well known for a loud, high-pitched alarm call when it senses danger. So it's kind of the perfect logo. In our situation, we really think of this as having a personal meteorologist in your car. And what Pikeload is doing is looking all around you and providing you with a heads up before you stumble into that bad weather, thereby hopefully giving you a chance to do something and not get in those dangerous situations. And it turns out the entire basis of doing this is your car. So your car does 2 really important things for us, and that's actually a sketch of my car, which there's a bit of an irony here, because if you've driven this car, or one like it, you know that it does a lot of things well, except driving in bad weather conditions is not its strength. So anyway, cars like this are going to transform the way we drive in the future. So if you have a car like mine, you're getting air temperature on the dashboard. And that's clearly something that is of interest to us as weather people. And if you think about it, if the windshield wipers are on, it's probably telling us something about the local weather conditions. But we've actually been able to take this one step further. Using some field trials in Detroit, Michigan, we were able to determine that just before the weather conditions are getting bad, just before the road's getting icy, drivers were changing the way they were operating the steering wheel. It's kind of a subtle thing, but it's still a beacon of what's to come. Now, the second thing is related to data and the quality of data. We hear a lot about big data these days. There's kind of an adage in the weather community that says the ultimate accuracy of your weather forecast is somewhat related to the amount and the quality of the data that goes into it. So honestly, right here in the U.S., we have one of the better road weather networks in the world. We have about 1,000 stations that are monitoring things like air temperature, road temperature, whether it's raining or not, every 10 to 15 minutes. So that sounds pretty good. But it begins to break down when you really look at it. So maybe you've taken a trip to my home state of Colorado now for a ski vacation. You fly into Denver International Airport, you rent a car, and you drive up to Vail or Aspen. You probably didn't notice it, but you passed about a half dozen or so of these road weather information stations. But the problem is, if you drive on those roads enough, you begin to realize that over the course of a mile, over the course of maybe a couple of minutes, the weather conditions can change very rapidly, and we can begin to miss these things. So with our current monitoring network, we'll get a few thousand observations per day, located, again, every 10 or so miles. Vehicles are measuring the things we list up here every 20 seconds, every 10 seconds, sometimes every second. So we'll have a few million observations that are coding the entire roadway. And I think that will be a game changer. So putting these two things together, in the near future, vehicles are going to be transmitting information to one another as well as to places like NCAR. And this will all be done automatically. Cars are going to roll off the assembly line with the equipment already installed. This is getting us back to the future a little bit. Two things to point out here. The driver doesn't need to do anything special. You just turn your car on and away you go. And secondly, it's all anonymous. Can't track where you're going. I know that's a big concern for a lot of people. Then at NCAR and various other places, we're going to take that data. We're going to combine it with the more traditional weather observations. We have three algorithms right now. One is looking at the visibility that we see on the roadway. Another is looking at the type of precipitation we're getting on that roadway. And the third looks at the slickness of that roadway surface. So for example, we start one of our algorithms by taking the temperature that you're getting off your vehicle, combining that with radar, with more typical weather maps. We blend that all together. And then we go ahead and look at whether your wipers are on, whether your anti-lock brake system or your traction control system is operating. And we can tell you if it's raining or sunny. It's pretty obvious. But there's a lot more going on in terms of the subtleties of the road conditions. And I think what's really interesting is that we provide this information about every mile of the road, and we can update this every minute. So here's how it looks in reality. This is one of our state partners, is the Michigan Department of Transportation. We have their interstate network set up with green dots, yellow dots, and red dots. And as you might figure, green dots are suggesting weather conditions are pretty good for driving right there. You don't really need to worry too much. Yellow conditions could be things like snow, and you probably want to take some caution. Red conditions are things perhaps like fog, where if you can avoid being out on the road, that would be a good thing. And if you can't, then you have some heads up of what's going on. So with our system, we provide what's going on right now. We're updating it every minute, but we also give an hour a forecast out to 72 hours every hour. So if you're sitting at home, you can begin to plan things like when you want to go. So for instance, you may want to click on one of those dots, and something like this would pop up. We could say that, okay, it's 8:30, it's foggy right now. Over the next hour and a half, we're going to have some moderate snow, and then it's going to clear up. So if you had an ability to know this was going to be the case, you could stay home, you could enter some email, you could watch Back to the Future too. You could slide that in. And then you could leave at 11 o'clock, and you'd be a lot safer. And so would everybody else on the roadway. Of course, once you get out on the roadway, we don't really want you looking at a laptop that's sitting beside you and radar and things like that. That sounds like that's a little counterproductive. So we have a phone app. It also is red, green, or yellow. In green conditions, not much is going on. When it turns yellow, if it senses something around you, so it's talking to a server every 15 seconds, and it says, hey, here I am. Is there anything I need to be concerned about for where I'm going? And if you're about to enter a region that's yellow, screen turns yellow, something like this might pop up, advisory, slick roads ahead. And it also gives you an auditory alert so that you don't actually have to be looking at your phone. And then if you go to a red warning type situation, the same kind of thing happens. So, at the end of the day, Pikeload does 3 things for us. The first is safety. By letting us know what conditions are going on right now, we have an ability to not be surprised, not stumble into the bad weather conditions. Second is mobility. By allowing us to look at maps like we just saw, we can see where the various roads are green. And if we have an ability to, we can reroute where we're going to stay on those green roads. And the third thing is the environment. So it turns out transportation is the second leading contributor to greenhouse gas emissions here in the US. And more perhaps concerning for me is that we spend about 550 million hours as a society stuck in traffic jams due to bad weather. It's actually the second leading cause of traffic delay behind the typical rush hour types of conditions we get. So, with Pikeload, by letting people know when they should be out on the road, a lot of people should be able to make better decisions, not get stuck in those kind of conditions. So, going back to the future, Doc Brown said, roads, where we're going, we don't need roads. And I hope that's true someday, but until then, Pikeload has your back. And for some of you, it has your front. I've got some nice handouts here with our Pikeload logo, so I'm just going to toss them into the crowd here at the end. Heads up. All right, I'm going to try to do this fast, otherwise I didn't realize this would be such a big room. Gosh. Here we go. And while I'm doing this, thank you for your attention, by the way. This has been a pleasure. Oh, sorry. All right. Still going. Here we go. I haven't been over here yet, have I? All right. Just a couple more. All right, here we go. All right. Oh, there's lots of hands there. Okay. Here we go. All right, last one. There you are. All right, thank you.